introduce the first of our two authors. Um, at only 23 years old, Blythe Baird is already one of the most recognizable names in spoken word and slam poetry. The viral and award winning writer has garnered international recognition for her poems that speak out on sexual assault, mental illness, eating disorder recovery, sexuality, and healing. Her work has been featured in numerous publications, including Glamour, Elle India, TED's Minneapolis, which is the TED Talks, the National Eating Disorder Association, the Huffington Post, and quite honestly, I could go on and on. Baird graduated from Hamline University in 2018. So, folks, she just graduated last year. Yeah, great. Woo! With a dual degree in creative writing and women's studies, and her first collection of poetry, If My Body Could Speak, if I remember correctly from the interview, was stuff you started working on in high school, correct? Yeah, so it's an absolutely wonderful collection. Um, there's so many subjects we don't speak about, that we kind of whisper about it in hushed voices, um, you know, that we kind of gossip about, but never really address. And all those whispers, I think, simply reinforce sort of the taboo nature or that this should not be spoken of. It's wrong to bring these things into the light. Things such as mental illness, such as anorexia or obesity, sexual assault, trauma. Um, Blythe's work, though, directs light right onto these subjects. And it makes it clear, though, that these are not things to gossip about or whisper about. That these are people who are struggling and are recovering. That behind every single whispered gossip, there's a human being who is going through things that we all go through in some form and potentially with a greater intensity. What I love about these poems, they are fierce, they are fearless. There's so much strength and courage in them, in their production and in their delivery. And I really think she puts these issues in a larger social context, and one that I think is really indicative of a new generation, your generation. Okay? People who are going to say, I am sick of these old ways, and we are going to make this new. So it's with great, great pleasure that I introduce Blythe.
Can you hear me? Beautiful. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I've never been to New Jersey before, and it's really lovely so far. Yeah, thank you again for the intro and for just everything that you guys are doing here to bring creative writing to your campus. I think it's super special. I'm going to do some poems, but before I do that, I always like to do start every show with a call and response. So if you guys could just repeat after me. I am powerful. I am significant. My stories are worth telling. My voice is worth hearing. Yes, it is. You don't have to say it, right? I'm just affirming you. When the fat girl gets skinny. The year of skinny pop and sugar free jello cups. We guzzled vitamin water and vodka, toasting to high school and survival, complimenting each other's collarbones. Trying diets we found on the internet, menthol cigarettes, eating in front of a mirror, donating blood, replacing meals with other practical hobbies like making flower crowns or fainting, wondering why I haven't had my period in months, why breakfast tastes like giving up, or how many more productive ways I could have spent my time today besides Googling the calories in the glue of a US envelope. Watching America's Next Top Model like the gospel, hunching naked over a bathroom scale shrine, crying into an empty bowl of Cocoa Puffs because I only feel pretty when I'm hungry. If you are not recovering, you are dying. By the time I was 16, I had already experienced being clinically overweight, underweight, and obese. As a child, fat was the first word people used to describe me, which didn't offend me until I found out it was supposed to. When I lost weight, my dad was so proud he started carrying my before and after photo in his wallet. So relieved he could stop worrying about me getting diabetes, he saw a program on the news about the epidemic with obesity. Says he is just so glad to finally see me taking care of myself. If you develop an eating disorder when you are already thin to begin with, you go to the hospital. If you develop an eating disorder when you are not thin to begin with, you are a success story. So when I evaporated, of course, everyone congratulated me on getting healthy. Girls at school who never spoke to me before stop me in the hallway to ask how I did it. I say, I am sick. They say, no, you're an inspiration. How could I not fall in love with my illness? With becoming the kind of silhouette people are supposed to fall in love with? Why would I ever want to stop being hungry when anorexia was the most interesting thing about me? So, how lucky it is now to be boring. The way not going to the hospital is boring. The way looking at an apple and seeing only an apple, not 60 or half an hour of sit ups, is boring. My story may not be as exciting as it used to, but at least there is nothing left to count. The calculator in my head finally stopped. I used to love the feeling of drinking water on an empty stomach, waiting for the coolness to slip all the way down and land in the well, not obsessed with being empty, but afraid of being full. I used to take pride in being able to feel cold in a warm room. Now I am proud I have stopped seeking revenge on this body. This was the year of eating when I was hungry without punishing myself. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but that shit is hard. When I was little, someone asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said, small. Thank you. Sometimes I miss being sick. The grimiest part of me wishes I had stayed in that familiar city of gray and mental illness and whatever the opposite of healing is, where there was nothing to laugh about but plenty to write about. I've considered myself to be recovered from my eating disorder for 3 years, but I still write about it in present tense. When a friend at dinner makes a casual comment on calories, the scoreboard in my head illuminates with numbers again. And for once, I don't want to write about this. For the first time, I am embarrassed instead of proud of all of the mad things I have done for happiness. Once, I cut a ribbon the size I wanted to be and wore it around my waist like a bracelet. Bathroom scales make me feel nostalgic like a scrapbook. I flip through snapshots of my sickness, the suppers of tobacco smoke and red lipstick, how I used to pack my lunchbox with floss and teeth whitening strips. Sometimes, I still paint my nails when I'm hungry. I can't eat until the polish is dry. I don't want to go into any more detail because what if you mistake this poem for an instruction manual? I don't know how to talk about the rabbit hole without accidentally inviting you to follow me down it. When recovery is not all yoga mats and tea and avocados, it is work. It is remembering that sucking on ice cubes does not count as supper. Body, forgive me. It is not healthy to drink so much water that your body becomes a bathtub your organs float in like loofahs. Body, forgive me. Trying to ignore the caloric calculator in my head is like trying to ignore television subtitles, and sometimes I just can't. Body, forgive me. Killing yourself slowly is still killing yourself. Wanting to die is not the same as wanting to come home. Recovery is hard work. Not wanting to die is hard work. Every time you asked if I was full, I heard you say fat, but I'm trying so hard not to do that. I'm trying not to search for the nutrition label on the back of a birthday candle box. I am trying not to dab my pizza with a napkin. I'm trying to stop doing things that don't make any sense. Body, forgive me. I am trying. I am trying. I am still trying. Thank you. Has anybody ever been in love? That shit sucked, didn't it? You hated it. Just kidding. It was probably really lovely until it ended. This poem is called The Kindest Thing She Almost Did. It was the year we woke up holding hands like otters do. She mentions I'd look cute with a gap, so I stop wearing my retainer altogether. When she tells me that she loves me, and that she has a lying problem on the same day. I know I am completely and utterly fucked. She makes me watch Star Wars with her, and then she doesn't even watch it. She watches me watching it to make sure I'm reacting properly. I read her daily horoscope to her while she gets ready. And even though she doesn't believe in it, she at least tries to act interested in astrology and tarot cards and all that other hippy dippy trippy shit I believe in but can't prove. I fall in love with her quickly, the way she wanted me to, all skin and poem and Diet Coke, listening to Regina Spektor on her bed while she calls me baby girl and plays with my hair. When I find a boy's hair in the rough drafts of her poems, I pretend not to. When I ask her what she loved about him, she says, I know this is bad, but he was so terrible to me, I never ran out of things to write about. I wonder if she wants a lover or a writing prompt. There is a certain high to hating yourself, she told me once. I try not to point out the irony as she explains how unhealthy our relationship is between drags of her cigarette. When she takes me on a date to the same rink she used to roller skate at with her last love, I do not sob. When she apologizes for the way he owns the only spare key to her heart, I assure her it is no problem. I try not to be jealous of his sheer good fortune. I do not hate him for becoming the flood in my backyard. I do not hate myself for falling in love with a drought dressed like a girl, but I do hate myself for falling in love with feeling loved. Years later, she is drunk when she tells me, loving you is the kindest thing I almost did, and how impossible it is to train the heart to sit. The last time she shouts at me, my name foams madly at her mouth. She tells me, I don't know how to love anyone with my whole being. And all at once, I feel so stupid and so small as I tell her, well, I don't know how to not. In an effort to get her to stay, I promise her, I will be whatever you want me to be. She tells me, that is the problem. Thank you. Make some noise if you're not straight. Woo! Okay, that was sweet. All right. So neither am I, obviously, and my mom still is just not on that boat. So this is actually a really old poem I wrote when my mom first found out I was gay, but sadly it still applies as much as it did the first day I wrote it. But this poem is called "The Way I Was Taught to Live." Mind you, my mother is old. She's like 70 plus now, so maybe just a generational thing. We'll see. My mother looks at me like I have grown tentacles before her eyes, even though I'm pretty sure I look the same as I did 5 seconds ago, when she thought my suit jacket was just professional, before she discovers I am hella gay. The first time I heard the word, it was dropped casually on the radio in the car with my mom the summer before 4th grade. It dripped down the air conditioner so noticeably, I couldn't help but ask if gay was a bad thing. She explained, it's not necessarily a bad thing, it just isn't our thing. Years later, I'm 17, half daughter, half apology, all fire and the wrong kind of love. When my mother asks if I am gay, I tell her I am sorry. When she asks, how can you possibly love something that looks just like you do, I wonder how long she has hated herself. I convinced myself I could pick up being straight like a sport. I just need to practice. I just need to set my mind to it. I just need to convince my mom to want to be my mom again. She sends me an email with the subject line, are you being gay for attention? I'm drunk with shame for hiding this unsanitary secret in the same closet as her clean linens. She wants to know when I knew, and I wish I could tell her something simple, like maybe since the first day of junior high when I sat behind Dana Murray and smelled her Herbal Essences shampoo. My mother is old enough to be my grandmother. As a child, she would sing to me every night, Blythe, I wished on a million stars for you. How could I not mistake the ceiling of her love for the sky? And she tried to braid flowers in my hair, asked if every friend was a boyfriend, didn't mind if I brought home a bruised wrist or black eye as long as I had a prom date. She would rather take a photo of me wincing with a boy than of me smiling with a girl. My mother says her opinion shouldn't mean anything to me. Because when has her opinion ever meant anything to me? And she is only one person in the grand scheme of things, so I know her opinion is not the ocean. But even if the harbor isn't very deep, people drown in their own bathtubs. Would she still have wished for me if she knew I wasn't going to love the way she taught me to? My mom insists she doesn't mind the glitter, just the mess it's left all over the house. She doesn't mind my sexuality, just how it sticks to the furniture. She is not angry with me, just exhausted. Now there's so much for her to clean up before we have company. Thank you. Pocket sized feminism. The only other girl at the party is ranting about feminism. The audience, a sea of rape jokes and snapbacks and styrofoam cups, and me. They gawk at her mouth like it is a drain clogged with too many opinions. I shoot her an empathetic glance and say nothing. This house is for wallpaper women. What good is wallpaper that speaks? I want to stand up, but if I do, whose coffee table silence will these boys rest their feet on? These boys. I want to stand up, but if I do, what if someone takes my spot? I want to stand up, but if I do, what if everyone notices I have been sitting this whole time? I'm ashamed of keeping my feminism in my pocket until it is convenient not to, like at poetry slams or women's studies classes. There are days I want people to like me more than I want to change the world. Once, I forgave a predator because I was afraid of starting drama in our friend group. 2 weeks later, he assaulted someone else. I am still carrying the guilt in my purse. There are days I forget we had to invent nail polish to change color and drugged drinks and apps to virtually walk us home and lipstick shaped mace and underwear designed to prevent rape. Once, a man behind me on an escalator shoved his hand up my skirt and no one around me said anything. So I didn't say anything because I didn't want to make a scene. Once, an adult man made a necklace out of his hands for me, and I still wake up in hot sweats, haunted with images of the herd of girls he assaulted after I didn't report, all younger than me. How am I to forgive myself for doing nothing in the mouth of trauma? Is silence not an act of violence, too? Once, I told a boy I was powerful, and he told me to mind my own business. Once, a boy accused me of practicing misandry. You think you can take over the world? And I said, no, I just want to see it. I just need to know it is there for someone. Once, my dad informed me sexism is dead and reminded me to always carry pepper spray in the same breath. We accept this state of constant fear as just another component of being a girl. We text each other when we get home safe, and it does not occur to us that not all of our guy friends have to do the same. You could literally saw a woman in half, and it would still be called a magic trick, wouldn't it? That's why you invited us here, isn't it? Because there is no show without a beautiful assistant. We are surrounded by boys who hang up our naked posters and fantasize about choking us and watch movies we get murdered in. We are the daughters of men who warned us about the news and the missing girls on the milk carton in the sharp edge of the world. They begged us to be careful, to be safe, then told our brothers to go out and play. Thank you. You guys ever noticed how rape culture has become kind of an aesthetic? Maybe. I'm going to talk about it. That boy wants you to come over to Netflix and chill, even though you know that boy's personal agenda involves neither Netflix nor chill. That boy wants to communicate with you exclusively via Tinder or Snapchat chat. That boy wants to play truth or dare. That boy wants you to pick dare. Now that boy wants to play 20 questions. He's furious when he does not receive a reply because that boy believes his loneliness is your responsibility. You tell that boy you're doing homework, so he sends you a stream of unsolicited dick pics and says, haha, them what, winky face, because that boy knows that the winky face is crucial. That boy won't waste a single opportunity to request nudes. You could tell that boy your hamster died, and he'd be, aw, babe, send me a naked pic of you pouting. That boy makes you sit in polite silence and watch him play video games. That boy calls you everything but your name. That boy doesn't give a fuck about the best part of your day. That boy hates how you look in that dress. That boy barks at you in the middle of Target because he doesn't get the point of high waisted shorts. That boy wants you to stop wearing lipstick. He says you look like a pale clown. You stop wearing lipstick. You tell yourself you didn't even like lipstick that much, anyways. That boy makes you feel smaller every day. That boy wants you to have another shot. That boy thinks you're so pretty when you're fucked up. That boy mistakes your alcohol poisoning for a perfect opportunity. That boy pretends not to notice the way your head swings up and down like a limp bird with a broken neck. The word no is not in that boy's vocabulary. That boy is most in love with you when you are drunk or silent or both. That boy leaves handprint shaped bruises to bloom like bellflowers up your thighs. That boy blocks the door, yanks your arm like a leash when you question him in front of his friends, makes you apologize to the back of his hand. That boy pushes you against the wall as if pinning the wings of a dead moth to cork. That boy presses your voice like a crushed tulip between the pages of his temper, and now that boy is finally pleased with you. I've been thinking about the relationship between that boy and rape culture. That boy seems to have a lot in common with a predator, but that boy would never call himself a predator. That boy would never call himself a rapist. He thinks those are strong words. He prefers to think of himself as ambitious. That boy found so much empowerment in rape culture that it became his identity. It became a socially acceptable aesthetic. Suddenly, it is clear that that boy is nothing but the reason you didn't get home safe, the reason you spent more time last year in the Title IX office than you did in class. I remember when I asked him, "Why do you get to call it a mistake instead of call it rape?" He looked right at me and said, "That's bro code, baby." I remember when he asked me, "Why are you so afraid of everything?" And all I could think of is what a privilege it is to be annoyed instead of afraid. Real quick, I'll tell you. This poem was in response to a couple of my other poems that I read tonight. These old dudes on YouTube would like make these response videos, and they were just so mad. They were so mad. But I wrote a response to their response, so still get the last word. It's called Yet Another Rape Poem. I know you think I talk too much. I know you don't think this is what a pleasant survivor is supposed to sound like. I know you are threatened because I am a thunderstorm of a woman with so much to say. Do you know how long it took me to say anything at all? Sometimes I worry I write too much about assault. I worry this is too ugly a burden to talk about. I worry I am putting too much responsibility on you, the listener. But when I talk about my trauma, I am not asking you to carry it or relieve me from it. I am just asking for it not to be too heavy for a conversation. These experiences take up so much space inside of me. And this stage is the only place I can let this trauma live outside of my body. There is no socially acceptable time or place to talk about rape. I realized this at a party I didn't want to be at, dizzyingly drunk. Someone asks how I'm doing, and his name spills from my mouth into a puddle of vomit on the floor. I apologize and apologize and apologize until the host says, "Shoot, girl. Is sorry the only word you know how to say?" Suddenly, I am the embarrassed girl crying in the bathroom at the party because I made the mistake of speaking about what happened to me at what was supposed to be a happy occasion. I am afraid of wearing my recovery too publicly. I have noticed people only stopped calling me victim and started calling me survivor when I stopped talking about it. But now I have stopped bringing flowers to the grave of the teenager I used to be. Back when I had orchids in my hair and polka dots on my shoes bubbling over with light, I used to refuse to wear the dress I was assaulted in. I used to imagine it draped in a sash of caution tape because that dress was the only witness. I threw the underwear away. I didn't want to write a statement. I didn't want to file a report. I wanted to take a shower. I wanted to scream, "My statement is that I woke up today. My statement is that I stayed here in this body, but every day I find new ways to heal. I wear the dress I was assaulted in and I do not associate it with him just to remind myself that he does not own a single fucking part of me. I found a way to heal through the poetry. This stage is the only place I could tell my story where it wasn't a liability I was putting onto anyone. This stage is where I learned to stop hoarding my suffering, and I could give a fuck about a slam score. This is me healing. This is me reclaiming ownership over my body. This is the only place I have control over the narrative, and he cannot interrupt me. Even though trauma has a way of becoming the wallpaper of my head, watch me drag the art from my suffering. Watch me plant seeds down my spine and bloom into a garden of poetry from every horrible thing that ever happened to me. All the nights my voice turned to cement and I couldn't say anything. Watch me build an empire from the ashes of every single thing that ever tried to destroy me. Thank you. And my last poem is gonna be off my phone, but it's the 21st century. We can handle it. It's called Guilt Doesn't Live Here Anymore. You made it through, girl. You made it through every single time the world scratched and skid to an end. You woke up. Tomorrow shoved you out of bed. Sure, some days the only meaningful thing you did was breathe, but even when survival feels like a performance, it is still an art form. Staying alive is a skill, and you are so talented, girl. You are worth so much more than the sent emails and crossed off to do lists. Find victory in the small things: the folded laundry, the clean plate, the answered phone call, the brushed teeth. You used to say you were sorry every other sentence, girl. And now people tell you that you make them feel powerful. And you always somehow forget the fact that you dragged yourself out of quicksand, girl. You took notes on the beauty and the lessons that you gathered while you were sinking. You escaped the padlocked jaw of shame, and when those barbarian boys pushed you over the lip of the ship, you were all sucker punch and bitch. I keep a life raft in my smile. I keep switchblades in my mascara. The next time a motherfucker comes knocking at the door of my body without an invitation, I am going to slice off each of his fingers like baby carrots. I'm going to drown him in a boiling hot spring of Me Too's. I'm going to take over the world in spite of everything that has been done to me and my body. In fact, I am going to take over the world because of everything that has been done to me and my body. I am sharpening my voice into a sword. I am becoming a girl made of mace. I left hell so I could come back and tell you all about it. And you know what I learned? Every time I thought my life was ending, turns out it was only opening. One day, the urge to write a poem became greater than the urge to write a suicide note. And so I wrote the poem. Thank you guys.